So you're thinking about coming to the US and you're exploring different visa options. And you've heard about something called the O1 visa or the talent visa or whatever you want to call it. And you're thinking, what is an O1 visa? Can I get an O1 visa? Why would I be given something called talent visa? Am I talented? I've been there. I know what that feels like. And that's why I'm here today to answer all of those questions. I got my O1 visa as the founder of a biotech company in September 2024. And actually, the process was less daunting than I imagined initially. So today, I'm here to tell you what the O1 visa is, how you can apply for it, what the different criteria are, help you understand if you meet the criteria, and if you don't, what you can do to meet them. So what we're gonna do is the following. I have literally the letter we sent for my O1 visa with my lawyer in front of me, and I'm gonna go criterion by criterion, explaining what the criteria are in general and what I did to say that I fulfilled each of the criterion. Actually, there was one that I didn't even try, which I'll explain later. But out of the 8, we defended the case that I qualified for 7 of them. So for context, I am the co-founder and CEO of a company called OncoSwab. And OncoSwab is a diagnostics company that does non-invasive cancer screening using nasal-based testing. Like, you could think of it as a COVID test, but for cancer detection, and in particularly lung cancer. And the reason we decided to start with lung cancer is because it is the deadliest cancer in the world by far. In the US, it kills more people than breast, colon, and prostate cancer combined. So it's a massive, massive, massive problem to solve. And it all started at a hackathon. So a European-wide, European Commission organized hackathon for top European scientists. And we had this idea to merge the concept of COVID testing with cancer detection to make early detection the norm in diseases like lung cancer. And that's how my company was born. And that's also where I met my co-founder. It's a story that I've already told in other videos of my channel. After starting the company, I very quickly realized that Europe wasn't, unfortunately, the place for us to build the idea, especially the very early stages. And I have a video on my channel where I talk about how I went from idea to reality and moved to San Francisco to pursue this big vision we had that was going to be a little harder to do in Europe. And of course, for that, I needed a visa. So that's why we're here today. I don't know what your profile is. Maybe you are a high-skilled employee thinking about getting an O1 visa. Maybe you're a researcher. Maybe you are a business professional. Maybe you are an artist. Maybe you are a founder, most likely, I would assume. With all of those, you can apply for an O1 visa. But for founders in particular, I think the go-to visa is the O1-A visa, which is by definition a visa for highly skilled professionals in a specific field. So with this visa, it's with people for extraordinary abilities. That's literally what they call them. Extraordinary abilities in a particular field that you can, of course, make the case as to what that is. It can sound intimidating, like extraordinary abilities, but there's people that have gone the O1 visa for gaming. I don't know, maybe they're in the top of their fields in gaming. And at the end of the day, if you come to this country to create value and you are at the top of your field, whatever that field is, that is what matters the most. So for me, that field was biotechnology and entrepreneurship. So the O1 visa doesn't really take that long per se. It's a relatively simple, relatively easy visa to get. If you pay premium processing, which I highly recommend, it's not that expensive, you can get a response in 15 business days, which is crazy. So what actually takes long in the visa process, in the O1 visa process, is compiling all of the evidence, particularly if you don't meet the requirements. So for context, when I started learning about visas, it was right after we had the idea, probably, or whatever, I don't know, early 2023. And I only got the visa approved a year and a half later. And by the time I started talking to lawyers, to me, the whole concept of getting an extraordinary ability visa was something that to me seems so far, so out of reach. But I realized that there is a way that you can kind of reverse engineer if you're in the right position and in the right space and doing the right thing. You can kind of reverse engineer meeting the criteria. So for the following year, that's what I worked on. And again, I'll tell you everything about it, criterion by criterion. So let's get into it. There are 8 criteria. and you have to meet at least 3 out of 8 criteria. Now, let's go one by one. I don't know if this is the actual order, the official order of the criteria. I don't know. Just bear with me. I'm just gonna go one by one. Criterion 1, awards. So awards of international or national importance, or something very, very big, like a Nobel Prize. So if you win something like a Nobel Prize, that's it. That's all you need. Also, by the way, that's just more like a fun fact. I don't think someone that has won a Nobel Prize is watching this video, in which case that would be really cute. You don't need to be here. Get out of here. But awards essentially means that you have gotten any sort of award that could be considered of national relevance or even international relevance. For me, in this hackathon that I did, well, first of all, the fact that I was selected for the hackathon was already, in a way we argued, was kind of an award, because if you do something that it's very hard, you get selected to do something that is very hard to get into, where the acceptance rate is very low, that can count as an award. So we said that, but then within the program, within the hackathon, we got first place in the pitch competition and third place in the cancer innovation part. So we not only said that was an award that was of international relevance because it was European wide, but also we got the organizers to write letters of recommendation. I will say the letters of recommendation, I should leave a part of the video just to talk about letters of recommendation, because they are honestly such a painful part of the experience in my case. A, because of course it takes long to gather them, and B, because it's literally obviously you need to make it easy for people to write the letters, and for that you should provide them with a draft that they can sign. Pretty much that's how it works. And it's you writing beautiful things about yourself. It's you flattering yourself and you saying, Andrea is the most incredible person I've ever met. She has the most potential out of all the people I've ever met in my entire life. It's a very painful process, but anyways, we'll talk about that later. What you can do is, if you've won an award, like, I don't know, in high school, where it's like, this was a national award, a national competition where I got first in maths, whatever. Show that, that's something. Or if you've done an accelerator, like I also said that participating in this accelerator we went through was considered an award because the acceptance rate was 2%. And we got, again, a letter of recommendation by the CEO of the accelerator saying, we get X amount of applications and Andrea's company was among the selected ones, therefore it's an award. So that's something. Criterion number 2, memberships. Exclusive memberships for a specific organization. This is meant to be something like you belong to an association where only highly qualified people belong to, where only people with outstanding achievements are accepted or even invited to. I would say for me that's one of the things that took the longest, because I did not belong to any of those associations before even thinking about getting the visa. So then I had to try to find which association I could be part of, and I ended up getting involved with the Global Shapers. This is a program or an association from the World Economic Forum. And the Global Shapers community is technically invite only / you have to go through a process like interviews, etc., and it's only for young leaders under 30 that are doing something with big impact. I also had a couple other memberships. Nova Network, which is supposedly, it's invite only and supposedly for the top 3% of talent globally, but I don't know if that's true. And then a couple other, like another one that's not super relevant. The bad thing about me giving you guys this feedback is that I got an O1 for sure. That I know, but I don't know which of the criteria that I said I fulfilled, the reviewer thinks or thought I actually fulfill. So I don't know what of the things that I'm telling you today work. Like, I don't know which specifically work and don't work. So take it with a grain of salt. This is just my experience. So the membership ones can be a little trickier if the reviewer doesn't think that the memberships you're claiming to be a part of aren't necessarily prestigious. Then criterion 3, media coverage. I would say this is one of the easiest ones to get if you're trying to get an O1. Remember, we're thinking about 3 out of 8. So which will be the strongest is up to you, like depends on your case, but I would say media coverage is something that almost anyone can get. So there's a few ways of to get media coverage if you don't have it already. One is by paying. It's an option. Like, there's people that pay to get endorsements by Forbes or other magazines that are very prestigious and highly recognized. So it's like very easy to get. easy to claim, but you have to pay money. I personally didn't have to do that because we did have press, luckily. A lot of it was because of the hackathon that we did, and that gave us like good press. It doesn't have to be just press and just some random newspaper. It has to be an impactful newspaper. And in my case, I think the biggest, we had a few, but the biggest piece of press I had was the official EU magazine, Horizon magazine, that wrote an article on essentially how my company started, etc. I would be pretty sure that the reviewer did think that I meet this criteria because of that article. I also, as I said, had others, and I think the combination of all of the articles probably, and there were also like some international articles too, so like from different countries, not just Spain or the US. So probably the combination of everything was pretty convincing, but if I were a person that doesn't have any media coverage, I would focus on reaching out to people in the media space that can tell your story, or get big on podcast interviews. Like start smaller and then start building a brand for yourself where people invite you to either give talks, podcasts, be guests on podcasts, or even write articles about you, because podcasts are also count also as media coverage as well. Again, if you're a founder particularly, and I think this video is mostly going to be helpful for founders, if you're a founder, that's something that should be pretty doable, pretty easy to do. All right, original contributions, criteria number 4. If you are in science in any ways, this is going to be very easy for you to get. This one is about making an original contribution of major significance in your field. In my case, I developed or co-developed a non-invasive nasal swab-based test to detect lung cancer biomarkers. So that was easy to prove because we filed a patent for it. We also got some letters of recommendation here. So the letters of recommendation are something that they're not technically evidence, but they can help support a case, and you have to decide which criterion you put them in. You cannot just like submit them. They have to serve a specific criterion. What I did was I got key opinion leaders in the lung cancer space to say, this technology is going to change the world in lung cancer. Like if she is not granted this visa and she doesn't come to the US, we won't have that technology and we will all cry. So that's what you want. And then also another thing I'm reading that we said here was that I raised funding, launched clinical trials in Europe, was recognized by multiple accelerators and scientific leaders, etc. And all of this contributes to the original contribution, even indirectly, but it's still there. So if you have a way of showing, like let's say maybe you developed an algorithm or you created something as part of your work. If you're creating a company, chances are you created something new that didn't exist before. So if there's a way that you can argue that what you are doing is of major significance to your field, that's it. And then criterion 5, judging the work of others. This one, again, is one of the ones that I think is pretty easy to get. Why? To meet this criterion, you need to show that you've judged the work of others in your field, obviously, and that when you were judging the work of others, the other judges, this is something you can say as well, the other judges were of high profiles themselves too. Therefore, if you're in a panel judging the work of others, say at a hackathon, and the 2 other judges are literally professors at Stanford or like amazing individuals, and there's you, then you can say that you're at similar levels to them. So in my case, the hackathon, the European Commission hackathon, where my company started, is something that we said we argued as award, but then I got invited to be a judge in the following edition. And then we said, hey, remember that hackathon? So now I was a judge. And then I used that to obviously fulfill this criterion, which hopefully worked. So I say that this is something that's pretty easy to fulfill because especially if you're in the Bay Area, if you're a person that comes up to the Bay Area or entrepreneurship hubs in the world in general, it's so easy to be a judge at a hackathon, at a panel, at a whatever, something. What matters the most is that the rest of the jury members are, again, of high profiles. Like if it's a random competition at a university and the rest of the jury members are a bunch of students, that's not going to do the job. But particularly in entrepreneurship hubs, it shouldn't be that hard to find a good hackathon program, competition, etc., where maybe there's a spot open for a jury member. How you get that? I don't know, probably hustling a little, sending some messages on LinkedIn, but I'm sure that's something you can do. I have faith in you. Criteria number 6, high salary or remuneration. So this is essentially saying that you have had a position, like a good job with a higher compensation than the market rate, for example. This is okay, funny enough. Sorry, even though my base salary as a founder is, I should say, modest, to say the least. What you can do is you can argue that because if you're the founder of a company, you obviously have a lot of equity, you can use that equity as compensation. And you can say, well, I think that my company is pretty successful, will be pretty successful, and there are some comps that I can share. For example, hey, there's this diagnostic company called Exact Sciences. They also did at-home testing for another type of cancer, and that company literally is worth $10 billion. So if I continue this path, my company is also going to be worth a ton of money, and I own equity. So thereby, that's part of my compensation. That's something you can say. It's a little more like, moonshotty. But another thing you can do is say, again, with using the same equity argument, you can use that as evidence for this criterion, high salary or remuneration. One, because you can use whatever valuation you raise your the money on, which is going to be, in the millions, hopefully, to argue that your company is already worth or potentially worth, or someone thinks it's worth a lot of money. And then don't quote me on this, do your own research, but I believe that I've heard someone say to me that if you are applying for an O1 visa under entrepreneurship in some sort, raising money can be used, and like having significant money raised or like angel checks or whatever, but like some good amount of money raised for your company, this can be used as evidence to fulfill this criterion. We definitely included evidence that we had raised money. Maybe you're asking yourself, how much money is a lot of money? How much money is significant money? We had raised maybe, I don't know, a few $100,000 at that point. So not millions. Again, I don't know if the reviewer considered that I met this criteria or not, but take it for what's worth. And last one that I applied for, scholarly articles. I believe that goes somewhere, that's not the last criterion, it goes somewhere before, but whatever. Scholarly articles, again, if you're in science, super easy, essentially showing that you've been an author, or you've published, blah, blah. Essentially, you're saying that you've published peer-reviewed articles, that you have been an author in peer-reviewed articles in your field. I honestly don't know if I met this one. Like, I definitely said I published articles, but truth be told, I have published one article where I was the third author, or maybe fourth author even, and it was in nanomedicine, so completely different field, but I should say it was for this thing, whatever research we were doing to prevent sepsis, to cure sepsis. I don't remember if it was sepsis or something like that. I should know, right? I think I should know. Anyways, the point being, you can say that there was some correlation between sepsis and the particles that we were studying in the lung, and the fact that now I am in lung cancer. So we try to make some correlation there. I think it was a little far-fetched. But if you were not 24 years old like me by the time I applied, and have some more experience and maybe have a PhD and have some more papers to show, then you're fine. If you're not a scientist, then you're probably gonna have to forget about this one, because yeah. So criteria number 8 is critical employment, and this is where you show that you have had positions of power, positions of high importance at a company where your role was indispensable and you were the best, and the company would have died without you. That's not something I could say about myself. I was working in a lab before doing this company. Not that I was indispensable, definitely like help keep the lab happy, and that, if you ask me, is pretty indispensable. But if that's you and you've been like a manager and oversaw people or have overseen people, and your boss really liked you and would write a letter saying, oh my god, I don't know what I would have done without this person, and give it a shot. And that is it. Now, before I forget, let's talk about the letters of recommendation. Letters of recommendation are, as I said throughout the video, you probably already know, you got the gist at this point, but essentially you ask people to write letters. Not very many, you need maximum, I think 10, but my lawyer said it's probably better to do closer to like 4 strong ones and 8 mid ones. And these people have to be very high profiles, influencers in your field. And they have to say not just that you're the best, they have to talk about your work and the impact of your work. I think that one of the things that helped my case the most is that we had a letter of recommendation from an European Commission officer that I met, obviously, at the hackathon. And I am pretty sure that that helped my case a lot, because I can imagine if you are the officer or like the reviewer at UCIS, is that what it's called? UCSCIS? If you are a reviewer at USCIS and you have like 1 hour to review each case and you're like, okay, well, I guess the European Commission thinks this girl is like doing okay. So you'd be like, okay, if they say so. So the letters of recommendation can be like incredibly important. I would say if you can get people that are influential in the US and that can name names that the reviewer at UCSIS will be like, ooh, then that's gonna help your case a lot. So my tips here are a few things. One, this is a process that takes the longest. So start with this, because compiling, putting together, gathering, sending, reviewing, editing, signing these letters is a lot of back and forth. It's a lot of work. So the sooner you start, the better. Another tip is definitely, I mean, you're gonna have to write the letters yourself. Oops, maybe I'm not supposed to say that, but I mean, if you are a very, very busy, influential person and this random person says, hey, can you sign a letter of recommendation for me telling the US government that if they don't give me a visa, this country will collapse? The least you can do is give them a freaking draft. Like, give them something to work with. You're gonna have to do the heavy lifting. And if you're a founder, you know this, because that's how the world works. So that, unfortunately, means sitting down and writing, multiple letters where you say, wow, I am the best. What would the world do without me? And that can be really painful, I can tell you. Unless you are in love with yourself and obsessed with yourself, in which case I am happy for you, you should be. But even any amount of delusion and self-love and self-obsession has its limits when it comes to the LORs, if you ask me. So yeah, of course, obviously ChatGPT can help. And there are a lot of models where you can just like train ChatGPT, etc. So ChatGPT is your best friend, and ask your lawyers or yours truly. Maybe I'll leave some things in the link below of examples of letters that you can use. So that is literally it. That's it. That's all you need to know. That's what you need to know to get the process started. It took me 8 days to get my visa, O1 visa approved. 8 calendar days, 4 or 5 business days. It was super fast. I was 100% sure that I would get it at that point because, as I said, I had worked very hard until that point to make sure that we had a very strong case. So I was pretty confident, but I would also recommend working with the right people is the best thing you can do. It's very important that the people that you work with you trust and come from a trusted source and have good references. And for that reasons, because I understand the struggle, I have partnered up with the team that I'm currently working with, the firm that I'm currently working with. So if you are in need of a lawyer, let me know, send me an email, drop a comment down below, and I will make sure to connect you with them. Whew, that was a lot of yapping for a Sunday at literally 7 p.m. I need to leave this place. I need to leave this office. I really hope you found this video helpful, and if there's anything else you'd like to know, any other questions you have about the founder journey, coming to San Francisco, starting a biotech company, what this world feels like, etc., I'm here for it. Let me know, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Okay, time to get out of here.